so excited to welcome Melissa to this Q&A today. Happy World Ocean Day, Melissa. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
Hi, Lindsay. Happy World Ocean Day. It's my pleasure to be with you. My name's Melissa Walsh. I am the Director of Blue Finance and Innovation at a nonprofit called the Ocean Risk and Resilience Action Alliance. And I'm calling you from Australia. Yep, on the sunny east coast of Australia in a little town called Emerald Beach. So lovely to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. And that leads us into our first question. So we've had some questions submitted from schools, and I think this is the best one to start with, which is, can you explain what Blue Finance is?
Yes, I can. So basically, my job is looking after the ocean, but in a different way. I'm no longer spending time underwater and snorkeling as part of my job. But what we do in Blue Finance is we try to connect projects happening on the beach and in the ocean that are working to save the ocean with the money that they need to do their projects. So we like to connect from the beachfront to the boardroom. And what that looks like every day is a bit different, but we are often trying to figure out how to speak to both banks and financial institutions, people with the money, and kind of translating that to projects on the ground who are either protecting marine areas or working with fisheries, and making sure that they have access to the money that they need to do their work.
Wow, that's awesome. You've explained it so well. So the next question, I love this question. How do you persuade banks to give you their money?
Oh, it's a good question. Look, it's a combination of things, but when it comes down to it, every single person on Earth is an ocean, it benefits from the ocean, right? We all, no matter who you are and where you work, you benefit from the ocean. And people working at banks are no different. So we try to find that common ground and try to tell them all of the many good things that will happen if they invest in the ocean. Sometimes we're asking them for a donation, and that means they might give money to a project and they might not get anything back from that, but they feel good about the donation that they've made. Other times we're actually looking for an investment. So we're saying to the bank, if you give us money for this project, we will invest it and we'll give you your money back. Plus, you're helping to make the ocean better at the same time. So it really, it is a bit of persuasion, but it's also just finding that common ground and showing the banks that they are better off in investing in the ocean as well.
That's so cool. I feel like you must be very good at persuading them. What would you say the best part of your job is?
Oh, the best part of my job is absolutely being able to provide support to communities and small businesses who are the ones making all the change on the ground for the ocean. And when they often come to me and our organization looking for help because they are very busy people and they're driven by passion and trying to save the ocean, but they don't necessarily have all the skills or knowledge of how to get money for their work. So when I can come in and help make those connections and let that capital, that financial capital flow into those projects, and then being able to see that money put to good use, when communities are better off, they have more fish to snorkel with, to eat. They have better protection of their coral reefs and their mangroves. It is such a pleasure to be able to see that those changes happen.
This is such a good lead in to the next question, which is, what kind of projects does the money you find support? Can you give us a few examples?
Absolutely. So we support anything happening in the ocean space as long as I'll give you a phrase we like to use here. It's ocean positive. So things that are a positive impact for the ocean. And that can be in a variety of things. It could be in sustainable seafood. So sometimes there's projects that are looking to, for example, do sustainable fisheries, and they are trying to make sure that small fish have a place to grow up and are protected, and managing only larger fish or different kinds of gear and fishing. So there's projects there to make sure that the seafood supply chains are sustainable. But that's not it. We also work in things you might not necessarily first connect with this, like marine renewable energy. So greening of ports and ships, offshore wind and solar, and then all the way to things like community conservation of marine protected areas. So it really is a diverse range of things. Almost every economic sector on Earth touches the ocean in some way. And so for us, it's about making those activities more blue, more ocean positive, and trying to make sure that every dollar spent is resulting in the ocean being better off.
Amazing. I love that phrase, ocean positive. That's a really useful one to remember. I'm wondering, like, so someone's asked here, like, what does an average day look like for you? But I guess I'm going to expand on it and say, if someone was working in blue finance, what might a normal week, maybe there's no such thing, but what would like a week in the life of Melissa look like?
Oh, my life, it's never boring. I'll tell you that. There's a lot of variety in that, because sometimes I'm meeting with projects, and so I travel quite a bit. So I go to see projects where communities and businesses are working for the ocean, or I might travel to financial centers like New York and London to meet with banks and insurance agencies. And so my days are kind of spent on a day-to-day, lots of Zoom calls, lots of reading, researching, writing, and then mixed in there quite a lot of travel, traveling both to the beachfront and to the boardroom. But the very best days are when I can bring those things together. And so, sometimes we get the privilege of bringing together people from the beachfront and the boardroom into one place and helping them to connect. And I like to facilitate those connections through workshops and meetings and things like that. So really, it's all about finding those smart, passionate, driven people on both sides and helping them to connect wherever that is in the world.
I wonder whether this is a bonus question. I wonder whether you ever get to take the people in suits, the bank managers, the investment fund people. Do you ever get to put them in the ocean? Is that a fun thing you get to do?
Yeah, we do. Not often enough, but we do sometimes.
Okay.
And to see the connection in, firsthand in real life, to see their eyes light up, to see their hearts light up, to find that connection, that humanity that we all have. Some of my best memories are, on boats with people, having deep philosophical conversations about why we need to protect the ocean and why it's so important and why it's so urgent. And then for people who do work in suits in offices far away from those beautiful places, to take that home with them, and for that then to influence what they do with their day-to-day. It's really rewarding.
I feel like that must make it easier to persuade them when they're like having a really fun time snorkeling or on a boat or something like that.
Absolutely. Who doesn't love to spend some time in the ocean together? It absolutely does. And I think part of this too is, it's also taking it the other way. And so we also work with communities and with government representatives to bring them to the spaces where decisions are being made. Sometimes that's the boardroom, sometimes that's in big cities. Other times it's where the policies are happening. So, at the United Nations or at big global events where government decisions are being made. And so bringing the beachfront to those places is equally important.
Wow, that's really cool. Okay, last question. Well, almost last question. But the last two are connected. So someone has asked, how did your career start?
How did my career start? Oh, it's been a long journey with some twists and some turns. I always knew that I wanted to work in protecting coral reefs in the ocean. I just had a deep love inside of me that I can't explain exactly where it came from. I was just born with it. But I started off working more in the sciences and coral reef science in particular, and some chemistry. And but I knew that I wanted to work to protect the reefs, but I thought I needed to start with the science, so I had a foundational understanding of what was actually happening in the water. And then I kind of expanded on that to work in coral reef management for a while, and love that. And that's all about making sure the government policies are lining up with protecting ocean spaces. But we kept hitting the same issue over and over again, which is that even when you can get the science right and get the right people in the room, there's just never enough money to fund this important work. So I
Yeah.
kind of pivoted and decided that the science is important, but there's still a lot of good scientists in the world, and the policy is important, but there's a lot of good people working on that. But at that time, there were very few people really focused on this intersection of finance and marine conservation. And I decided to fully pivot and dive straight into that so that I could kind of see how I could make my own difference in this space, and in something that I believe could really catalyze a lot of change. So I did a hard pivot. I decided to go back to school, got a PhD, and I've been working in this little specialization ever since, which has grown huge. This area of blue finance has grown to be quite big in the last few years, but it started out as quite a little unknown niche. And I guess for me, the journey has been just following my heart, my passion, and my skill set to see where I can make a difference in this big, complicated ocean ecosystem.
It sounds like you almost invented your job, which is really cool.
In a way, I did. In a way, there wasn't a path to follow. I had to kind of create the change that I wanted to see and create the opportunity. And I definitely would encourage students to not just look at the jobs that exist today, but what job do you want to see happening in the future, and make your own path.
It's so cool. Okay, so last question, I promise. If someone's listening today and they're really inspired by what you do, what skills, what things might they start to think about if they wanted to pursue a career in blue finance?
Great question. You know, a lot of people in blue finance these days are a little bit like me, that most of them have spent time in science and conservation, and then have learned finance later in their career. And you can do it that way. But if I were to start all over again, I would actually flip it. And my advice is start on the finance side, get to understand finance, economics, and business, and bring that back with you to the ocean space. But no matter what you do, I think it's finding your niche. What is your special role in this that you can add value? And you can't solve it all, but you can pick one thing and work really hard at it and make a difference.
I absolutely love that. It's such good advice. Thank you, Melissa, so much for joining us. I hope you have an amazing rest of your World Ocean Day. And thank you also for the incredible work that you're doing for our ocean.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure and an honor. And happy World Ocean Day.
You too. Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Bye.